I'm very pleased to have in the studio with me Sam Sachs, a writer, co-founder of the District Sentinel News Co-op based out here in Washington, D.C., and co-author with his partner in the District Sentinel, Sam Knight, of the new book. It's both an ebook and a physical book. We don't have an endless amount of time, a first draft of 2015, looking at all the stories from the District Sentinel from last year and that are still of consequential impact, of consequence this year.
Yeah, big time. If people want to know where all the policy debates stand right now in 2016, especially animating a lot of the debates on the political trail, read that book. It shows kind of where we are in terms of criminal justice reform, in terms of a free and open internet, in terms of foreign policy entanglements. Check it out. So kind of where we've been, where are we going sort of book.
And the website is districtsentinel.com.
Districtsentinel.com. You can find a link to get a copy there.
Right. Yeah. You live in Washington, D.C., so others don't have to.
Right. In D.C., so you don't have to be. That's right.
There you go. So what are the big stories that you guys are covering right now at the District Sentinel?
So there's been no shortage of news about how disturbing Donald Trump rallies have become with the violence and the rhetoric. A new story broke over the weekend out of a Trump rally in Arizona where 3 activists were arrested for blocking traffic outside the rally. They were protesting. They were with a group called Mahente. And they were an advocacy group, and they were protesting Donald Trump's rhetoric towards Hispanic Americans.
Yeah, I saw this. It was being covered live to live,
right? They were
wall to wall on the Trump network.
They chained themselves basically to cars. Well, 3 of them were arrested. That happens when you go and protest. 2 of them were promptly released, but one of the activists, Jacinta Gonzalez, was detained further and questioned by immigration officials, detained by ICE, and of course she says because she claims and is probably correct that it's because her last name was Gonzalez.
She is a U.S. citizen.
And she is a U.S. citizen. This has shades of the 2010 Arizona Papers Please Law, SB 1070.
Oh, which Trump would have loved. I mean, that was Joe Arpaio's thing, you know.
Exactly. Of course, it was struck down in 2012 by the Supreme Court. But why this group was there protesting to begin with, why Mahente was there protesting, is because they were arguing that Trump's rhetoric fuels policy. It's not just empty rhetoric happening in a vacuum. State legislatures will listen to that. They will feel, emboldened to pass more laws like 1070. And you're already kind of seeing it in Congress. Last year, Congress went on a huge kick about sanctuary cities legislation shortly after Trump started making his incendiary comments.
Although that had been a big issue in the Republican Party before.
It's always been a big issue, but as soon as, and it was kind of clamped
really
down a little bit.
It was really a Bill O'Reilly issue. It was really more of a Fox News issue, wasn't it?
Right. But, when it comes to a legislative calendar and determining where to put things, there's a lot of things that Republicans are interested in. They moved that to the top as soon as Trump got in the race and started beating that drum.
Trump is meeting as we speak with Jeff Sessions and Tom Cotton and 3 other Republicans, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Here in Washington, D.C. What are your thoughts about the possibilities of a Trump for president on the Republican side?
I think they're pretty good at this. I think he's going to be the nominee. And I think that a lot of these Republicans who've been against him, who've spoken out against him, are going to all fall in line eventually and get behind him. And he's going to be a formidable challenge in the general election, I believe.
I'll bet John Kasich is going to be his running mate.
I could see that. Not kind of, we don't like each other, but we're here for the necessity of the ticket in the Republican Party. I could see that.
I saw Kasich being interviewed over the weekend on the Trump network. All Republicans all the time, MSNBC, and he was asked, straight up, would you consider being Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate? And he did not say no. And he was asked 3 times, and he did not say no.
It might be the only way they can go into the convention and try and tamp down on Trump without taking away the nomination if he has the delegates and causing what he has described would be a riot, which...
Right. What's that going to do to the Ted Cruz followers, though? Or are they not as solid as the Trump or the Kasich folks?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never... Maybe my own personal bias has just dismissed Ted Cruz as ever being a presidential material. I mean, I think Ted Cruz or Donald Trump has a better chance of being president than Ted Cruz now, which says a lot. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. Yeah. What other stories are hot right now in the District Sentinel? We're talking with Sam Sachs, the co-founder of the News cooperative here in D.C. We should probably very quickly describe what a news cooperative is.
Well, it basically means that we're a news organization that's run, the decisions are made and owned by the reporters who work there. We depend on money from our readers, and if you join and become a member of the co-op, you can have a say in the direction that of the stories we cover and the direction that the company is going in, that the co-op is going in. We don't have sponsored content or anything like that. We try and get by based on our readers and in the workers at the co-op.
Right. Cool. Okay.
So
next story.
Last week, another story coming off Capitol Hill. Afghanistan, America's longest running war, still going. It's also a really long rebuilding effort, which started basically after the bombs started dropping at the end of 2001. It started, I think, at the beginning of 2002, the rebuilding effort. And
very profitable for Halliburton and companies like that.
Exactly. The Defense Department alone has spent $113 billion building things that were either destroyed by U.S. bombs in the war or things that never existed to begin with in Afghanistan.
$113 billion? The
$113 billion.
Most people,
since 2002.
Most people probably don't realize that when George W. Bush started dropping bombs on Afghanistan, they were the second poorest country in the world, and their annual GDP, the entire totality of all economic activity in the country, was $2 billion a year.
Exactly.
So we've spent $118 billion rebuilding a country with a $2 billion.
It's only the Department of Defense. It doesn't count what the State Department has spent, too, which is in billions more in other federal agencies.
Wow.
And what the problem is, we built things that the Afghanistan government cannot maintain or keep up as soon as the U.S. leaves, if the U.S. ever does leave. For example, the Afghan government takes in, as you said, it takes in roughly $2 billion in revenue. GDP was $2 billion before we came in. It costs $5 billion just to maintain the security forces alone, plus another $5 billion to do all the other stuff that the government needs to do. Most problematic here is John Sopko, the Inspector General overseeing this giant effort, testified in front of Congress last week saying that Afghanistan has become a narco-terrorist state, which it was before we before we invaded the country. But since then, we've spent $8 billion trying to stop the drug trade. They grow opium. It's manufactured into heroin. We spent $8 billion, the Department of Defense, trying to stop that, and it's more profitable than it ever has been before.
Wow. And contributes tremendously to the heroin epidemic in the United States. A lot of it is Afghan, and particularly also in Europe and Russia. I mean, big problem. Very cheap heroin coming out of there. I'm assuming that you know the story of in March of 2001 when George Bush had been president for 3 months, and he went to the State Department went to the Taliban and their annual production at that point in time, as I recall, was around 8,000 tons of opium a year, or maybe it was 8,000 tons of heroin, whatever it was, but I think it was opium. And said, we'll give you $40 million if you just burn the crops. They did. They took his money. They burned the crops. The Taliban supervised it. And the next year, the total output from Afghanistan was only about 1,000 tons. Mm-hmm. And the price of heroin went up worldwide, and heroin addiction went down, AIDS infections went down, especially in Eastern Europe and Russia and the southern part of Northern Europe. And in the United States. And then, as soon as Bush started bombing, I mean, that all went to hell, and heroin production went back up again.
And if you get rid of it, then there's no money to be made in trying to stop the drug war. Something that John Sopko, the Inspector General, noted last year was the company receiving the second most amount of money from the federal government in contracts to stop the Afghan drug trade was a company called Academy, which, as you know, is formerly
Blackwater. Right?
Blackwater. Yes, it received $309 million from the federal government to stop the Afghan drug trade, which has been a complete failure.
When George W. Bush was able to stop it with a $40 million gift to the... Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Sam Sachs, writer and co-founder of the District Sentinel News Co-op. They also have a new book out. We don't have an endless amount of time. Check it out, districtsentinel.com. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Tom. Yep.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.